Hello, friends. It's Saturday night for me as I record this video, and if you're watching it, it means we got rained out in our second weekend of outdoor Sunday services, and it's sometime on Sunday afternoon or beyond that you are watching this recording. My hope is that as I record this, that we will be able to gather and see this outside, and you'll never have to see this, but if you are seeing it, my hope has been ill-founded because the rain came and we had to cancel the Sunday outside service. I wanted to record Saturday night so that we could have this video ready for you as soon as possible on Sunday morning so that you could get at it on your Sabbath so that you could grow. The year was 1998. I was with a group of college students from Western Michigan University as a campus pastor. We were at Spring Arbor camps in Everett, Michigan, with a large group of 1,000 or more college students sprinkled in with a few campus pastor types like myself. The room was filled with cool college kids. The worship was rich and exciting and hip and happening. When the worship concluded, they brought the keynote speaker on stage, and I instantly was worried for him because in the midst of this room filled with cool college kids with hip and happening worship, I saw instantly that this guy, this keynote speaker, did not fit the crowd. He was old. He had a full head of hair that was stark white as this shirt. He was stooped. He was small and incredibly unfashionable. His jeans had holes in them, and you could tell that he had sewn patches on his own at home, and he did not fit the image that I thought would be a speaker that would connect to this crowd. After the first minute, I realized not only was he hindered with these things, he was hindered with another thing. The poor fella had a speech impediment that made it hard to listen to for two reasons. The first is because literally it was hard to listen to. You had to listen and lean in to just simply understand what he said through the speech impediment. And then secondly, it was hard to hear because it was kind of cringeworthy, a bit awkward. And I wondered, why did they bring this guy to speak to this audience? And I wondered, how's this guy going to survive the evening when he has 45 minutes to speak to this crowd? Within moments, I knew that my assertion of his inability to speak to the crowd was entirely off. Within moments, the crowd filled with cool college kids having just experienced hip and happening worship, they were in the palm of this old, little, stooped, unfashionable, speech impedimented man's hands. And what had put them, me, us, in the palm of this man's hands? I'll tell you, he began to speak of God as his Abba. And the unfolding of his story, albeit hard to understand, it was a story of a man who walked through brokenness into acceptance and love from God, and he spoke of God as Abba. Abba. And I believe he began to shed light on the reality of who God is for many of us who had spent time, years, decades even, in the church. And he began to speak of a different understanding of God, not angry, not aloof or distant, but with us and for us, and merciful and gracious and understanding. He began to speak of Abba. So long ago, 22 years, and I still remember how he taught us as a group to pray in our times of prayer. Simply this, he said, close your eyes, and as you inhale, say the word Abba, Abba. And as you exhale, I belong to you. Abba, I belong to you. And this awkward little man at the end of this teaching on this God that was so appealing to all of us, he had us in the palm of his hand. He was on stage uttering his own prayer, Abba, I belong to you. He said it again and again and again. And you could tell that this little guy was clueless to the entire room, and you could tell that he was enraptured in the presence on the lap of his Abba. Abba. Well, you're watching this maybe on Sunday, the 21st of June. And I want to say to you, Happy Father's Day. Father's Day. Here's some of the words I've heard as a father. Dad, watch this. Dad, I hurt my arm. Dad, let's wrestle. Dad, I need new shorts. Dad, can I borrow the credit card? Dad, can my friends sleep over? Dad, can we go to the store and buy snacks for my friends and I who are sleeping over? Love you, Dad. Good night, Dad. Dad, can you help me with this? Dad, I lost my glasses. I can't find them. Dad, my glasses broke. Can you help me? Dad, a brick was dropped on my toe. Help. Dad. Dad. You know what I've not heard as a dad? I have not heard things like, Father, I beseech thee. Nor have I heard, Father, grant me this thine day, these thine gifts. I haven't heard that. And as I think about it, I realize I've not heard much formality or impressive vocabulary from my children as they've addressed me as Dad. Those slackers. Nor, when I've been at the playground picking the kids up at school when they were little, did I hear other kids address their dads in this formal, Father, bless me with these thine gifts. I haven't heard any of that. The conversation usually on the playground, when I hear kids speaking Dad, is Daddy, Dad, watch this, watch me. Can I jump? Push me on the swing. Dad, play. Come on, Dad, catch. And rarely is the imagery, in my experience personally, or in my experience that I've seen between a father and his children, is it formal. It's often playful and tender and vulnerable. Father. Did you know that when Jesus was in the midst of probably his most horrible moment, or at least the beginning of the most horrible season of his life, when he's in the Garden of Gethsemane, he's praying. And the scriptures tell us in Mark 14, verse 36, the scriptures tell us that he didn't pray, "O Father, grant me these thine gifts." We see in Mark 14, verse 36, when Jesus was at his most anguished, he said, Abba, Father. We see the Apostle Paul speak of it this way. He says in Romans 8, verses 15 and 16, the Spirit you receive does not make you slaves, no, so that you live in fear again. Rather, the Spirit you received brought you a word about your adoption to be his children. And by him, by the Spirit, we cry, here it is, Abba, Father. And the Spirit testifies that we are his children, Abba. And then the third and only other time the word Abba is used in the New Testament. We see in Galatians 4, the same apostle, Paul, who wrote Romans, wrote Galatians, what he would say is, because you are his children, God sent his Spirit of his Son who lives in our hearts. And the Spirit within us cries out, Abba, Father. Abba. That same old, little, stooped, white-haired, bespectacled, holy-pantsed, self-patched, pantsed man said in 1998 that the Aramaic word Abba that is used 3 times in Scripture, and I just recited them to you, is not the formal imagery that we convey with the word Father. It is not the word that conveys the notion of Father, grant these thine thy gifts. The image that he shared with us, and I remember it to this day, and if you've been a part of the river for any length, you've heard about that old man before, and you've heard this definition of Abba before, because it changed my understanding of who God is. Abba, he said, was an Aramaic word that the Hebrew people used to describe how a little child sitting on dad's lap after dinner, kind of before the after dinner nap kicks in, playing with dad's beard, just whispering, Abba, Abba, Abba. Jesus would say in Matthew 11, he would say, unless you are converted and become as a little child, you will by no means enter the kingdom of heaven. The word Abba implies that we be childlike in a world that calls us to grow up quickly, to be self-reliant quickly, to be independent quickly. And yet the word Abba, as I learned so many years ago from that short, stooped, uncool, yet powerful little man, is a word that Jesus and the Apostle Paul give to you and me to reference the Father, and it is a reference of tenderness and connection. And it's an invitation for you and me to be like children, carefree, joy-filled, playful, trusting, curious, excited. Forget the worry about greatness and accomplishment and success. Seek littleness. The invitation is when you sit on Abba's lap. Trust more. Strut less. Make a lot of requests. Abba, Abba. And accept all the gifts freely. For he gives generously and ungrudgingly. The word Abba encourages me and you to come to Abba the way a child comes to daddy. Abba. So again, happy Father's Day. And on this Father's Day, with this word Abba that has been ringing in my soul ever since 1998 when I heard that little uncool man speak, the word Abba has been an invitation for me to climb up in his lap every day of my life. The word Abba has been an invitation for me to go to Abba, even when I drop the ball and fail and sin again, even when I lose my temper, treat people poorly. I don't have to go to Abba shame-filled. I can go to Abba repentant, and he picks me up and says, I know. And the word Abba has been echoing in my soul and in my head ever since 1998, and it has given me freedom to walk through the struggles of depression and anxiety in my life. Abba. And the word Abba, ever since the word 1998 has began resonating in my soul as a pastoral leader in God's church, to convey God's love for people. And the word Abba is at the core of the foundation of the river, which is now approaching 17 years old. When we started, we wanted this to be a place where anybody could belong, because you can come in the presence of Abba even when you don't got your poop in a group. Anybody can belong so that you can believe in Jesus and become all that he intended you to be. It's about Abba, who is for you, not against you, who wants for you before he wants anything from you. Abba was at the beginning of this church, at the beginning years back in 2004. And the word Abba is behind our desire to live out intimacy with the King of Kings. It's our foundational value. We have two. The word Abba is behind everything we do. Intimacy. And if you ever come to the river, or if you ever hear me or any of the other preachers say anything other to pull you into an intimate relationship with the King of Kings, we've dropped the ball, because nothing that Jesus did came so that you have a life that you've got to behave right, believe right. You simply come and crawl up on the lap of Abba, the Father, and you can play with his beard, and he knows your struggles, and he'll hug you, and he'll comfort you, and he'll say, I know, and he'll equip you to lead your life in more and more freedom. Intimacy calls us to be in relationship with Father. And the word Abba leads to our second of only two values here at the river, and that is mercy. We are to be a people who are about others who need to hear of this Abba, who loves them. Abba has led us as a church to be about the lost, the least, and the lonely. Abba. And so on this Father's Day, I want to invite you to climb into the lap of Abba, because he is for you and he loves you more than you could ever imagine. Don't let this Father's Day pass without entering into or re-entering into a relationship with Abba. And maybe it begins, continues, and ends with this phrase, Abba, I belong to you. Abba, I belong to you. You belong to Abba. Happy Father's Day.